The recent mutiny in Russia has exposed huge insecurities in that country. But what does it mean for the war in Ukraine, and what happens now to Wagner, the mercenaries who rebelled? Firstly, in the space of just a few hours on the 24th of June, Wagner took control of an entire Russian city, Rostov-on-Don. They then sent a heavily armed convoy northwards, stopping just 200 kilometers short of Moscow, shooting down Russian military aircraft en route. It was the most serious challenge yet to President Putin's rule, even if, as Wagner's leader Yevgeny Prigozhin claims, it was not intended to be. In short, it came close to triggering what could have been a catastrophic civil war in a country with the world's largest arsenal of nuclear warheads. Secondly, Wagner has been by far Russia's most effective military force on the ground in Ukraine. Its soldiers, comprising both career veterans and convicts, are in most cases better paid and better motivated than the regular army. After months of bitter close-quarter combat resembling the street battles of Stalingrad in WW2, Wagner gave Russia something resembling a victory when its troops captured the ruined city of Bakhmut this year. President Putin is faced with a dilemma. Wagner launched a mutiny, so it's clearly a potential future threat. Yet it's also been enormously useful to the Kremlin, and not just in Ukraine. Deployed to Syria, Libya and several African countries, Wagner projects Russian strategic power and influence around the globe, and all the while under the guise of pretending it has nothing to do with the Kremlin. Only very recently has Putin finally admitted that Wagner has been state-funded to the tune of billions of rubles. Following the aborted mutiny, the Kremlin has said Wagner fighters have until 1 July to decide whether to sign contracts to join the regular army, not an attractive prospect for most. If not, they can either return home, or go to neighboring Belarus where Mr. Prigozhin is supposed to be in exile. We know from flight tracking data that an aircraft linked to Mr. Prigozhin landed in the Belarusian capital Minsk this week. His arrival there was confirmed by the Belarus leader Alexander Lukashenko. But that same aircraft has since returned to Russia, stopping in St. Petersburg and Moscow. But where is he now, and will he still be allowed to run Wagner's operations from Belarus? Despite his betrayal of his former patron, President Putin, he could still be useful to Russia, but Putin is unlikely to ever trust or forgive him for nearly triggering a civil war. There is a grim precedent of revenge exacted on those perceived to have betrayed the state. British investigators concluded that former KGB officers turned defectors, Alexander Litvinenko and Sergei Skripal, were poisoned in Britain by agents sent by Moscow. Mr. Prigozhin will now be looking over his shoulder for the rest of his life.